Hey guys, it's me here again, Youngstown Click. Thank you for watching. Today, I want to introduce you to somebody special. I was thinking about all the challenges and situations that all of you guys might be in and facing. And this whole thing has just thrown us into such a change of plans, such a change. People who used to be always out and about are now at home. You got families that used to be at school and sports activities all together, and you can't have that, as great as it is. You can't have that without some sort of challenges that come along. And hopefully next week I'm going to be interviewing some of my friends, just so that you could kind of see the some of the real world examples. What's going on in people's homes, what's the pros and what's the cons and what's the struggles. And we could kind of get through this together and kind of just experience it together. So I'm kind of excited about that. But today I want to introduce you to a Rachel Moshe. She is a licensed counselor. She has her own practice with Love Light Counseling. She is a certified anger management specialist, and in fact has written her own curriculum, has done state mandated and court mandated classes with her own thing, which I think is pretty incredible. Uh, she is a candidate right now to get this. She's a CPTT candidate, which is basically a certified partner as a trauma therapist. So that's pretty cool too. Another angle. She's just so hungry for knowledge, and the knowledge is fascinating because it's stuff that affects all of us. Um, and for me to admit that, um, because she is my sister. So that is something that obviously siblings don't always admit about each other. She is a great advice giver and a great big sister who has sometimes given me good advice. So anyway, with that said, her curriculum will also be available soon online, the anger management curriculum that you'll be able to access. And I think that's something that we probably all at different times in our life could probably use or take advantage of. Some people, we might know people who could use it more than others.
Everyone knows somebody.
Everybody knows somebody. Yes, yes. Okay, so I just wanted to invite Rachel on here today because um, first of all, we all need a friend, right? Sometimes we just need to know that we're not alone. Sometimes we need to know that the struggle is not just, it's not just you. You're not a bad person. You're not a weak person. You're not going through something that nobody else has gone through. So I just want to invite her on for a quick few minutes. First of all, I'm just going to ask her a few questions. And then if you guys have questions, let me just say this real quick and then we're going to get into this. If you guys have questions, would like to ask her and see what she says on, like, for future episodes, definitely message them to me, because I'm just going to assume that she has the answer to most of your questions. Okay, so with that said, Rachel, I know that you're still seeing clients, as far as, like, at least talking to them as much as you can and everything. What would you say is the biggest, I don't know, concern or kind of thing out there, the biggest challenge? And what would you have to say about to that or about that?
Well, a lot of people are at home now with their families in closer quarters. And so a lot of issues are arising with dealing with that and not feeling like they could have their space to get away. Everyone has different needs for space. So people being able to understand boundaries and um, what that looks like without being offensive or, just respecting other people's need for space or not and negotiating that can be a difficult thing. And then there's the added challenge of distance learning since most kids are being homeschooled now. And
I
so,
Oh my goodness, I've heard and seen so many memes and things that make me laugh on Facebook and other social media platforms, but I know it's not all funny. It really is a serious thing.
yeah, because people are expected to still, like people who are working from home are still expected their job performance and they need to homeschool on top of it. So that could be very challenging.
Okay, so what advice would you give as far as this is something that you see, and what would you tell your clients that maybe would help my listeners?
Well, each situation is unique and different. And so there's not really one size fits all. But for the people who are used to being, top performers and perfectionists, it can be difficult to remember to just enjoy the moment, enjoy this time that they have with their kids. And it's okay if it's not perfect. It's okay if
That's
things
good.
aren't exactly up to standard or something. They're, being able to relax and have fun, remembering to have fun. But for the people who tend to have too much fun and not, this can be an overwhelming time for them because suddenly have all these more responsibilities on their plate. And so remembering to take a breath and to breathe and to prioritize, like focus on the 2 or 3 most important things of the day and make sure those things get done kind of can help simplify that process. And it's really a good time for the family to come together and to work on projects together and to, um, you know, some people are overwhelmed because they do everything. And so now their children are home and constantly making messes. And so it could be a good time to take a look at what's working and what's not working and change some things up.
That's good. That's good. Because you're right. Because people are trying to now do what 4 or 5 people were doing before. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like the cooking and the teaching, and I mean these take definite like people who hired and skilled in these different things that now all of a sudden are being dumped on your plate. So of course you're gonna feel like a failure because you're not 5 people, you're not 4 people. You know what I mean? You're one person, and then not only that, but you have people already with dynamics of trying to interact and get together and stuff, and now you're thrown into this pot where you have no choice but to be together. Can you give us maybe real quick some practical tools, like for, let's just say right now, for a mother who is having trouble with the perfectionism thing? Is there something like maybe that she can write out her top 3 priorities for the day, and if those get done, she could feel good? Like, is something that we could give them practically, a thing that they can take away and say, I'm going to try this and see if it works for me?
I think for the mother that's the perfectionist, I think it can be, yes, the focus on those 2 or 3 things. And of course, write them down because we get that dopamine hit every time we cross something off our list. So there's been times that like I've accomplished something that wasn't on my list and I've written it down just so I can mark it off and get
Right.
that like feeling of, it's an actual dopamine surge that happens in your brain when you do that. And so, and
What
it's
about like, I mean, you could get, maybe let's just say you get 3 of 5 things done and then you still feel like a failure. What are the I don't know, like just what would you say to like what have you had success with, like prioritizing,
Mhm.
like, okay, these are the most important, or even going back to square one and writing down what are my priorities? Are my priorities to be a perfect mom? Are my priorities to have my children remember I love them? Or maybe my children are so out of control that I've never made them do chores. Like, so maybe that's what they need, is taking a step back and reevaluating what is it that they want during this time.
Well, because our culture tends to value productivity and
True.
things that are like easy to say, oh, I did this, I did this, I did this. And that's a very easy thing to get sucked into because it's fear and it's like we know how to succeed because we know exactly what it is that we need to do. Whereas being at home with our kids, it's a little murky. It's like kind of ambiguous of like what exactly am I supposed to be doing and how do I know I'm doing it right? And what kind of feedback do I get for all my efforts? That like and
Yeah.
sometimes we have to like know for ourselves, okay, I'm going to take 10 minutes out of my day to just sit and be with each of my kids. They each get their own 10 minutes. And
Oh wow.
sometimes some kids that aren't used to that are going to be turned off to the idea to say, hey, I'm going to start spending 10 minutes with you every day. Some kids are going to love that. But most parents know which one of their kids are not going to be super excited about that. So for the parent to just make the decision to say, you know what, here's my 10 minutes. I'm going to do this for myself. I know that I'm doing this and I'm going to do it, make a commitment to do it every day. And I'm just going to go and sit and be with them. And if they're reading a magazine or they're surfing the net or whatever it is they're doing, obviously if they're trying to have a private conversation, it's not the time to go and invade privacy, but if they're just sitting around or doing whatever it is they're doing, to just go and be present with all your attention on that child, not expecting anything from them, just sitting and being with them. That,
Right.
at first the kids might be like, especially teenagers, they might be like, well, what are you doing? Like,
Right.
what's going on?
Right. Right. I'm
So
totally right. But
saying,
what
well,
if
I miss being with you. I'm enjoying being, I just want to be with you for a moment and just sit and enjoy you. Then,
good. Wouldn't
then that
that come
start
down
to
to
open those bonds.
right? And wouldn't that come down to the fact of remembering how much we each need connection? We're created for community, and right now, I mean, I'm sure that there's so many people who live by themselves or who are on their own or by themselves, and um, the fact that there are families that can be together. That yeah, you need to pull back and get your own personal space, or maybe finally do some project, fix the windows together, or whatever it may be that each thing has had. Oh, I don't have time to do that, and doing it together instead of you know but just realizing and remembering that without community we start withering. There's a piece of us, even if we're successful in every other area. I mean, I've heard story after story of successful business people who at the end of the day long for that connection. They've given it all the productivity, all the pats on the backs at work, and so here we have an opportunity to really build that and remember that even though now I'm not a parent, but all the kids in my life and all the people that I love, just remembering that there is a piece of them that is longing for that community and that connection. And if you don't take it and put it into them, then they will get lost in the video games. They will get lost in things that don't have as much meaning. That becomes almost like a crutch, right? Or like a habit. So then when they get put into situations where they're supposed to connect, they don't really know how to do it. I've been in situations where I'm trying to have conversations with people and they don't know even how to have a genuine conversation because they're so connected into their device. But then once you pull them out of that, and once you go through that work of like kind of breaking out of that, the connections and the information is just so incredible. The things you find out about the people that you love and that you thought you knew, and you know what I mean. Sometimes I guess I'm encouraging the people who have the teenager who says, what are you doing? I get out of my room. I don't care. I don't want to spend time with you. I'm not used to this. It's weird. To push through it, like find a way to connect to them, because there is that deep down needing and that longing.
Right, and even if they're not like being pushy, to say, you know, just to say, well, I'm going to sit here for a few minutes and just enjoy being with you,
Or
and not
watching
like
video games,
not necessarily like, yeah, pushing through that resistance as far as in the uncomfortableness of it. I
right,
think
without being pushy.
without, right, necessarily forcing a conversation or forcing anything. It's just sitting and being, like sitting and being, and that lets that child know, that teenager know, that you are there for them, and you're not there on your phone, you're not there with something to read or paying attention to anything else. You're just sitting there looking at them, and maybe thinking about the positive things, because sometimes when parents have had a rough time with with their kids, it can be difficult to look at that child with fresh eyes of like when they were first born, and you wanted the whole world for them. And sometimes we need to forgive our children. Sounds a little weird, but sometimes these little things can add up and they can become walls that we have um, towards our children, and our children feel that and they respond in kind. Like, we all know when we interact with someone that's distant from us, or they
Right.
have their walls up, we can feel it.
Oh
And so
yeah.
if you don't trust them, and so then that just feeds into each other. So shifting that can be as subtle and as simple. It's still difficult, but it's simple is just taking 10 minutes and just being present, fully present with your child.
Okay. So that is probably what you would say, like the very practical step is just kind of being present. And even with spouses or
That especially, yeah. That's
right. Okay. Because I think we all get in ruts, you know, and
mhm,
we've all kind of in some ways began to put up with the people in our lives that we are connected to. We just kind of put up with them. And so um yeah, I'm gonna attach to this video, I'm gonna attach a chart. It's called the chart of misunderstanding. And um I mean, if it helps, it helps. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But
mhm.
it definitely, it's one of those things that may help in if you find yourself just clashing with everybody around you and clashing. I mean, your life, you are one of a kind, right? You are, I mean, you may not have had anybody in your family that has done this the right way. And here's your shot, here's your chance to make things right or to do things different. I'm not even going to say right because it puts such an expectation of perfection on you, which obviously doesn't help. But here's your shot. Here's your chance to do something bigger than just watching Netflix and wasting away the time until you go back to work, to a job that a lot of you might hate or not even know why you do. So this is a chance to really step out of that rut and to put in the work and do stuff. But I'm going to put this chart out there, and all I encourage you to do is if it makes sense, use it. If it doesn't, don't use it. But hopefully it helps maybe get through some of these challenges as well. All right, Rach, last but not least for today, and again, if you guys have more questions or something that you want specifically to talk about, I think what we're going to do is make this like a regular weekly thing, maybe like a column, and we'll call it "What Would Rachel Say?" How's that? It'll be like an advice column, and then once I get the website up and going, that we'll have your questions and the answers of what Rachel would respond to them, and kind of hear what you guys, even after this is over. Um, but during this time, people have a little bit more time, a little bit freedom on their hand. And we haven't even gotten into like what guys are feeling. I mean, they are so productive driven many times. And all of a sudden, here they are. So much of their identity is just, I can't even imagine. So for my guys out there, just know, man, like, I don't
Driving
even,
their families crazy trying to fix everything.
yes, right. Just enjoy. You spend so much time at work and so much time getting to know the people at work. Just try to reconnect or connect. I don't know every individual story, but just know that you are bigger than your job. You are bigger than the paycheck you bring home. You mean so much more. And even right now, when the stress of income and how are we going to make ends meet, and you feel that burden and you feel that pressure on your shoulders, just know that you are so much bigger than that. You are so much bigger than the money that you bring in. So find a way to connect, find a way to remember who you are and why you're here on this earth. And together we will get through this. That is why you're part of the clique. That is why you're part, whether you live in Youngstown or not, you can be part of this community and part of this clique. Okay, so Rachel, good book that you would recommend. I know you have so many. I already it's like a trick question for you. So give us something. Give us just
So
something that would
a
maybe help
common theme,
relationships. We'll say family, family.
right? So you've talked about how we were created for community, and that, and I know we talked a lot today about like kids and connecting with kids, but it really starts with the marriage, the relationship, the mom and dad, um, and it kind of spills over from there. And so a book I would recommend, and of course the principles can be taken to any relationship once you get understand them, is Created for Connection. It's a book written about creating relationships that heal. It's not just about healing relationships, it's about creating relationships that healing springs forth from. And so I like that because that really is what relationship is about, is being a source of safety and healing and love and all those good things that allow us to go out into the world and take risks
Right.
and to be adventurous. And we know that we have that person, or that
Yeah.
safe place, that
So,
safe haven to come back to. And we need that.
and let me just say this real quick as we close out. Thank you, Rachel. That does sound like a good book. I haven't read it, but
It's
that is
written by Sue Johnson,
Sue Johnson.
Dr. Sue Johnson.
Okay, Dr. Sue Johnson. Let me just say, if you don't have that person, I mean, don't feel like you are alone. Don't feel like there's something wrong with you. You may be in a totally wrong group. I mean, the people around you may just not be that for you, but it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. What I encourage you to do is find someone to be that for. Find someone that you can say, you know what, I'm going to give them what I so desperately need. Because so many times when we internalize our surroundings, we internalize our situation, what happens is we begin to feel isolated and alone and different, and we start closing up. And the very thing that makes you come alive, one of the things, a very important thing that makes you come alive and adds joy to your life, is that's another thing I want to talk to you about, Rachel. I know you have such fascinating conversations about joy. I love that conversation because there's practical things. Some people think that people are just naturally happy or naturally, and there are different dispositions, but joy is something that you could actually, I mean, there's been people studying what makes joyful people, what makes people happy in communities, and why are some communities happier. And the same person could go from one community to the other community and be so much happier. So obviously it wasn't the person, right? So there is so much conversation we could have. And I know we're going to have to cut this short, or cut this, it feels short to us because we like to talk, right? But
Right. And also too, I'd like to do a caveat with your encouragement to go out and be something for somebody that we didn't have or we don't have. I think that's a special, you know, blessing for people who can do that. But the caveat is, if you're in an abusive relationship
mm,
or with an emotional vampire, then you, that's not the time to let yourself be sucked dry from someone who's just going to take and take and take.
right.
So using discretion when you pick that person.
Yeah.
That
Absolutely. One of the most important things that I remember Rachel saying to me a long time ago is, when you're a giving person, and you hear this so often, somebody's a giver, somebody's a giver, and they just feel so taken advantage of sometimes. And so many people say, you just got to stop. You got to stop giving of yourself. You got to stop. People are taking advantage of you. And I will never forget when you said, people should not stop being who they are. That's an important part of them. But what they need to do is, if they are around a lot of people who they they love, and so they're willing to give. I'm not talking about the people who have inserted themselves into your life, but if you love somebody who just seems to be taking from you at the time, you need to purposely find relationships that pour back into you. Because to try to change who you are based on where somebody else is a very unfortunate thing, because then we'd have some of the most generous people in the world, in life, people who are such a blessing to others, just closing up that piece of them and that part of them out of survival because somebody took advantage. And so I remember you saying that that is a big key, is adding giving relationships into your life if you do have a relationship with somebody you love who takes from you. And so building that, and pretty soon you may say, hey, this relationship doesn't work anymore because now I see that things are different. I see that I don't need this type of dynamic in my life. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Anyway, I called you for the advice, and here I am talking. So guys, email
What
me
else is
questions.
new?
Oh my goodness. Sisters, goodness. Okay, guys, thank you for watching. I know it's long, and for those of you who saw it to the end, thank you. Please email me or message me on Facebook, your comments, your questions, and I'm going to put that in the comment below. I'm going to put that chart of misunderstanding, so I hope that helps for you, and we will be doing some interviews next week with some real life people and finding out a little bit about what's going on in your neighborhood. Anyway, okay, Youngstown and all the world, thank you for joining. Rachel, thank you. And yeah, follow, like her on Love Light Counseling if you feel like you need to. We'll talk to you later. Good night.